Okay, this is one of the weirdest stories, rumors of the offseason so far. So, as NFL free agency has continued, there have been a fair amount of rumors and speculation surrounding former Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who was released by the Jets because they were sick of his BS. And Aaron Glenn and a new GM coming in there. They want to rebuild the Jets culture because it has been an absolute disaster over the last few years since they brought in Aaron Rodgers. And now there are a lot of rumors about where Rodgers will play next or if he will retire. Some of those rumors include whether or not he would go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe replace Russell Wilson, go to the New York Giants for reasons. And most recently, there have been some rumors about him potentially going to the Minnesota Vikings. Why? I'm not sure, but there have been rumors and have been pretty credible rumors at that. Not that he's going to go there, but that Rodgers himself would like to sign there. And there have been a few people that are credible that have talked about the possibility of the Vikings signing Aaron Rodgers. So today we're going to talk about this from a Lions fan perspective because I'm pretty qualified to talk about this considering the two things I hate in this world, especially recently, Aaron Rodgers and the Vikings. And if those two were on the same team, I would hate the Vikings even more, I would hate Aaron Rodgers even more, and I'd also love it. So let's get into it. Real quick, just before we continue with the video though, just a reminder to hit that like button and to subscribe and notifications on so you don't miss any future uploads. So let's get into this. This is going to be, we're going to have to look at this in a few ways. Number one, we're going to examine just the prospect of the Vikings being interested in Rodgers and why they might want him on their team for some reason, and more importantly, the reasons they should not want him on their team. And then at the end, we're just going to talk about how weird these rumors are in general. So first things first, let's get into this hypothetical here. Let's put ourselves in a world where the Vikings are seriously interested in Aaron Rodgers. Why would they possibly want to do this? There's really only two reasons. One, JJ McCarthy isn't ready, or they want to ease that transition from McCarthy to being the full-time starter. Bringing in a veteran QB would make a lot of sense since Sam Darnold left and you don't have that security blanket anymore. So a one-year deal for Rodgers could make some sense, right? Theoretically, he retires after the season, and then it's JJ's team from that point forward. And for another, this is a very QB-friendly system that the Vikings run. We saw how successful Sam Darnold was in it last season, so it would make sense that for Rodgers, who played in some really friendly QB-friendly systems, I should say, in Green Bay under Matt LaFleur, you could see those kind of seasons replicating themselves to an extent. Not the MVP seasons, but you could see Rodgers having a lot of success. The Vikings have great weapons. They have a very good offensive-minded head coach, so it's very easy to see a path to Rodgers having success as a Viking. But that's really it. If we look at the reasons why they should not do this, because this is a horrible idea, let's just think logically. For one, JJ McCarthy. You drafted him 9th overall to be your QB of the future. Unfortunately, he had a terrible knee injury last year that prevented him from getting on the field, which was the plan. Sam Darnold was not supposed to be the starter for all 17 games and the playoffs last year. It was supposed to be JJ's team, but unfortunately with the injury, Darnold had to play all the games, and fortunately for the Vikings, he played fantastic for most of the season, and the reason the Vikings were comfortable letting him walk is Darnold played his worst football when the lights were the brightest. Week 18 against the Lions, division on the line, and the moment was too big for him. That was his worst game of the season. He was missing open throws, he looked rattled in the pocket, and he looked like he was seeing ghosts again. And then in the wild card round, he didn't exactly play as bad as he did in Week 18, but it was also hardly his best game of the season. His two worst games of the season were the two biggest games of the season, and their season ended because of that. Now, as a Lions fan, I'm not allowed to talk down too much on the Vikings because Detroit also did nothing in the playoffs and choked, quite frankly, after a 15-win season. So I can't talk down on them too much, but it is worth noting that I wanted them to bring Sam Darnold back because the moments were too big for him, and I knew that in those big games, I would trust the Lions to be able to rattle him again. He walks, he goes to Seattle, whatever, right? Aaron Rodgers, he has been on the decline for years, as you would expect. Age has just caught up to him, but he also has not delivered in those big moments for Green Bay in recent years. We know that since they won their Super Bowl over a decade and a half ago at this point, we know that Rodgers has failed to live up to those moments after having fantastic regular seasons. Again, he was one of the most dominant regular season quarterbacks for the back half of the 2010s, but he never did it in the playoffs. There was the terrible game against San Francisco in the divisional round where a terrible game. Green Bay as a whole had a terrible game, and they choked against the 49ers that year, right? But he also choked in the second half against the Buccaneers in 2020. He had a good stat line overall, but his defense gave him 3 interceptions in the second half, and he couldn't deliver. Back in 2014, that Packers team just couldn't deliver when they probably could have contended for a Super Bowl, right? We all remember the choke against Seattle there. So Aaron Rodgers has not lived up to those moments either. So why would you bring him in if the whole reason you were comfortable letting Darnold walk is because he didn't live up to those moments? And for another, as I said, JJ McCarthy is waiting to start games. Whether or not JJ McCarthy is a good quarterback, irrelevant, because we don't know. But the Vikings drafted him to play him. You don't draft a QB in the top 10 to not play him for multiple years. Not every young QB is Jordan Love, who just sits on the bench for 4 years and then gets to play. JJ McCarthy looks like he has the physical tools to be a solid starter now. And as I mentioned, the Vikings run a very QB-friendly system that allows the quarterback to have some fairly easy completions in the intermediate part of the field. You have Justin Jefferson, who is the best wide receiver in football. You have Jordan Addison, who is a very good wide receiver too. You have TJ Hawkinson, who is a pretty good possession wide receiver. He's not the most explosive. He's not that good of a blocker, but he is a very, very solid security blanket for QBs. So the idea that the Vikings would mess with McCarthy's timeline after it already got messed up by injury, also bringing in just a QB that's on the decline, that has not lived up to big moments in recent years, who, by the way, your fans also happen to hate more than about anything in the world. I know this because as a Lions fan, I hate Aaron Rodgers more than a lot of things when it comes to football. So those are the logical reasons. But there's one more reason why you should never consider doing this, and that's Aaron Rodgers, the person. Now, I've never met the man. His teammates speak glowingly about him. I don't want to take anything away. This is not to say that Aaron Rodgers is a bad person. What I will say is there seems to be an awful lot of drama everywhere Aaron Rodgers goes. The New York Jets were comfortable, and not even just comfortable, were probably excited to get that contract off the books, because look at how much of a disaster that organization has been since bringing Rodgers into the fold. There has been drama everywhere. There was Garrett Wilson trade rumor. Like, Garrett Wilson was talking about requesting a trade a few months ago. That is like, that team, like, look, the Jets are bad, right? There's no question. There's a reason that they just had to swap out for a new head coach and new GM. However, a few years ago, they were a bad team, but they had a good young defense, and they were a team that was on the rise that just didn't have a quarterback. They bring Aaron Rodgers into the fold, and everything just went down the tubes. Like, everything went into the dumpster, and now they had to get rid of Aaron Rodgers so that they could completely reset the culture. They bring in Aaron Glenn as the head coach, who is a culture builder, and that's what he's going to be there to do, a program builder. So why would you want this guy on your team? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And to go back to my original point, which was, this is just dumb. The Vikings, I don't think, are actually seriously considering this because, again, I'm a Lions fan. I do not like the Vikings. In fact, I would dare say I hate the Vikings. But much to my chagrin, the Vikings are a pretty well-run organization. They do a lot of really smart things that really annoy me because I want them to fail. So when I see these rumors, they definitely seem to be coming from the Aaron Rodgers side of things, not the Viking side of things, because just from a football standpoint, for like a team standpoint, it makes no sense to bring this guy into your organization. And I don't think the Vikings are seriously going to consider doing this. So I don't know, man. I just wanted to come on here and talk because these rumors are hilarious. And again, I would love nothing more than for Aaron Rodgers to sign with the Vikings. And knowing that I'm a Lions fan, that should tell you everything you need to know about what I think about this. Is I want Rodgers to sign there. I don't think it's going to happen, but there's been enough smoke around this situation that I thought it was worth making a video on it. So I'm going to leave it there. If you're a Vikings fan, I would love to hear from you in the comments and just let me know how stupid of an idea you think this is. And more importantly, let me know what you think the actual probability of this happening is. I'm going to place it at under 10%. Like I think there's maybe a 5% chance this happens, but I'd love to know if you are actually concerned that the Vikings might sign Rodgers. And I mean, yeah, like let me know how excited you are for JJ McCarthy. If you're a fan of another team, let me know what you think of all this Aaron Rodgers drama, because he will never die. There is always drama everywhere this man goes. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. This is a lot different than the content I normally do because, again, I'm a Lions fan. I make Lions content. So if you're interested in Detroit Lions news, feel free to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of those uploads. But in the meantime, I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.